Alright, so this video we're going to look at graphing an ellipse. Now this one, the equation is not going to be in this form. We're going to actually have to convert it to standard form and then graph it. I'll show you the problem we're going to work. It's going to be this one. Okay, so you can see we have to convert it and then do everything. Alright, so first let's go over this real quick. It says the standard form for the equation of ellipse with center at the origin and major and minor axes of lengths 2a and 2b, where a and b are positive and a squared is greater than b squared. So here we've got x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1, and x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared equals 1. Now notice a squared, the larger number, here it's under the x squared term, and over here it's under the y squared term. So what's the difference? Well, if it's under the x squared term, your major axis is going to be horizontal. Okay? If the a squared is under the y squared, your major axis is going to be vertical. Okay? Now notice that this form here is with the center at the origin. It's where the center is at 0, 0. Now, what we may come across is the center not being at the origin. So if that's the case, it's going to look similar. The difference, we'll have something like x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals 1, and we'll have a squared and b squared in the denominators, or we might have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals 1, and this here we would have the b squared and here the a squared, and the same thing still applies. It's going to be the same thing. If the a squared's under the x, the major axis is going to be horizontal. If the a squared's under the y part, the major axis is going to be vertical. And then you notice these c values. These points here are called the foci, and the foci, we find that by c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. Alright, so in order to graph these things, we need to have it in this form, and it needs to be set equal to 1. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and we're going to need to convert this. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get the x terms together, we're going to need to get the y terms together, and we're going to have to take this and move it to the other side. So let's go ahead and move this to the other side. Plus 164 plus 164, and so that's going to give me 9x squared, and I'm going to go ahead and put the minus 36x here, and we're going to leave a little space here, and then plus the 25y squared plus 50y, and leave a little space, and that's going to equal 164. Alright, so you can probably guess what we're fixing to do. We are going to complete the square on these. Now remember, you can only complete the square when the number in front of the squared term is a 1. So you can see here we have a 9 in front of the x squared and a 25 in front of the y squared. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to factor out a 9. And so that's going to leave me with 9 times x squared minus 4x, and leave a little space, plus 25 times y squared plus 2, and leave a little space, and that equals 164. Alright, so now for this, okay, I'm going to take the 4, I'm going to complete the square, I'm going to take the 4 and I'm going to half it. So when you half the 4, you get 2. You square 2 and you get 4. So since I added 4 here, I need to come over here and add 36. Now, you might be wondering, well, where did the 36 come from? Well, I added 4 in here. But look at this. What's 9 times 4? 9 times 4 is 36. So see, I actually added 36 on this side, so I have to come over here and add 36. Okay. And this is actually 2y. Alright, so now let's half the 2. Half of 2 is 1. I square the 1, and that gives me 1. And since I added 1 in here, I need to come over here and add, can you guess what it is? 25, because 25 times 1. Okay, alright, now that's going to leave me with 9 times, and remember, when you complete the square, you get a perfect square trinomial, so that's going to be in parentheses squared. So remember, it's the square root of this, which is x, this sign, and then the square root of this, of the 4, which is 2, plus 25 times, and then the square root of y squared is y, this sign, and then the square root of this term, square root of 1 is 1, and that's squared. And that is going to equal, let's see, 225. All right. But remember, this has to be a 1. Okay, this has to be a 1. All right. So with this being, to get this to be a 1, what are we going to do? We're going to divide everything by 225. Okay. All right. So this is going to give me x minus 2 squared over, well, those cancel, and I would be left with what? That's right, 25. Plus, and then here the 25 and the 225 cancel, so I'm left with y plus 1 squared over, and that's going to be 9. And that equals 1. So here is our ellipse, or our equation, and you can see it's in this form. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and get our center. Let's get A, let's get B, let's figure out what C is. Okay, so let me go ahead and erase all this so we can come back up here and finish the problem. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem up here. X minus 2 squared over 25 plus y plus 1 squared over 9 equals 1. Alright, so now what I need is I need my center. Okay, so the center, I'm going to do that, no, I'm going to do it in a different color. So the center is what? 2, negative 1. That's my center. Okay, so remember, it's in the form x minus h squared plus y minus k squared over, and then a squared b squared equals 1. Well, let's just look at this part here. You see, here we have what? X minus 2. Here we have y plus 1. Okay, and they're squared. Well, if you look at this, there's x, there's your minus sign, and there's h, which is 2. Here, there's y, but we don't have a plus. We need to rewrite this as minus for the minus sign here. So how can we rewrite plus 1? Well, that's minus a negative 1. Okay, and so now there's your minus sign, and there's k, which is negative 1. The easiest way to remember it is when you're looking for the center, the center, it's the sign opposite of what you see. Since this is minus, it's going to be plus 2. Since this is plus, it's going to be minus 1. Okay, now let's get A and B. Alright, so we have a squared is equal to 25, which and all this is means implies a is equal to 5, and then b squared is 9. Okay, remember a squared is the larger number. Okay, that implies b is equal to 3, and from this we can get c. So remember, c squared is a squared minus b squared, which in this case that's 16. So that implies c is the square root of 16, which is 4. Alright, so now we've got everything. So let's go ahead and plot our points. Alright, so let's plot the center to -1. So 1, 2, and then down 1. So I've got the point to -1. Now, let's look at A and B. So our major axis is our x-axis, okay, because a squared is underneath the x part. All right, so what the a tells us is that tells us, since it's under the x part, that tells us how we move left and right. Okay, so since a is 5, that means from the center I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right, so I'll have a point there, and I go 5 units to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have another point there. And we can label the points. That would be the point 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, -1, and this would be the point -3, -1. Okay. Now for the b term, that's 3, and since b is under y, that tells me how I move up and down. Okay, so from the center I go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and down 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and so this would be 2, -4, and this would be the point 2, 2. Okay, now check out the other videos I have on ellipses, graphing them. I hit just about pretty much everything that you'll come across, so you might want to check those out. Alright, so now we can go ahead and draw our ellipse. It's not a very good drawing, but it'll do. Let's see. Okay, so there's our ellipse. Now let's plot our foci. So C is 4, and remember the foci is on the major axis. So since C is 4, that means from the center I go 1, 2, 3, 4 units, and from the center 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Okay, and so this would be the point -2, 1. This would be the point 6, 1. It's getting kind of crowded in here. And then for the center, you could actually label the center if you wanted to as 2, -1. And there's your graph with everything labeled. Alright, so like I said, check out the other videos, subscribe, give me a like, and thanks for watching.